Welcome to At Issue. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm H. Wayne Wilson, and with a new governor in Springfield, has the business climate in the state of Illinois changed at all? Well, we're going to have a discussion with the head of the Illinois Chamber of Commerce. The president and CEO of that organization is Todd Maisch. Todd, thank you so much for being with us.
Great to be here.
And you are a native Peorian?
I am.
So welcome back home.
Thank you. It's always great to get back to Peoria. I miss it.
Until freshman year, and then you moved.
Yes, right.
Okay. What caused the move?
Hiram Walker. When they shut down, my dad was employed there, and they wanted to move us out to the East Coast. My parents preferred to stay in Illinois, and we moved to Decatur instead.
So with that as background, the closing of Hiram Walker and Pabst was about the same time
Yep.
they closed, and there were some signs in Peoria. How would you characterize the economic climate of the state of Illinois today compared to that 30 years ago?
Well, it's certainly much better than it was then. But what we're concerned about, though, is not where it is, but where it really needs to be. Illinois is not an economic leader in the Midwest. It has been traditionally for decades. So while we're certainly not like the early 80s here, we're still a big gap between where we are and where we really need to be.
Where do we need to be? What steps need to happen in priority? Which would the chamber like to see first, second, third?
First of all, you got to restore fiscal sanity in Springfield. The state's finances are in terrible mess. We have a constitution that mandates a balanced budget, yet we have a legislature and now a governor coming in admitting that the last budget was $1.6 billion out of balance. That's crazy. That's the kind of thing that employers look like and say, who the heck is in charge of this place? We've got to change that. The election of Bruce Rauner was the most important step. Second thing that's got to go along with that, though, is that simply the balancing the budget and restoring our finances isn't simply a question between how much money to raise in taxes and how much to spend. It's about growing the economy so that equation gets much easier. When people have good paying jobs, when businesses are successful, they naturally create revenues for the state. That has to be part of the equation.
A year ago, I had your predecessor, Doug Whitley, on the program, and he wasn't overly optimistic, but we had a Democratic governor with Mr. Madigan and Mr. Cullerton in charge of the House and Senate. You mentioned Bruce Rauner was a good step, but you still have Democratic-controlled House and Senate. What's your prospect for getting some changes through?
Well, I'm still optimistic that you're going to see actually more cooperation than a lot of people think right now. And partly is that I talk to rank and file legislators all the time, and they realize and they are sick and tired of the status quo, just like the general public is. They know there's got to be a change. So they're more open to voting for things that they may not have a few years ago. So things like workers' compensation changes and things like changing the tax code to actually incent investment in the economy. I hear a lot of grassroots support for that in the legislature. So I'm actually cautiously optimistic. The other thing is I think that Bruce Rauner has demonstrated something we haven't really seen since the Jim Thompson era, and that is the personal relationship that he's developing with legislators and, very importantly, with the four legislative leaders, especially Madigan and Cullerton. He talks to them on a regular basis. They talk about a variety of issues, and I think that just change in tone is going to make a real big difference that'll bear fruit on down the road when the tough challenges come.
With that in mind, what of the agenda items that the chamber is in favor of, which ones do you think realistically might pass muster with the Democrats?
Right. Well, I think that the workers' compensation, which again, for viewers, not a lot of people pay attention to workers' compensation, but it is a huge cost on businesses. It's the system by which the state will compensate injured workers. People get injured on the job and need medical care and some, disability. That's the workers' compensation system. Problem is that Illinois system is so much more expensive than other states, it is a real disincentive to invest here. So I think that workers' compensation is a tremendous opportunity to get fixed, to get more competitive with other states. So workers' compensation is at the top of the list, I think. And Democrats and Republicans know that it's a problem, and I think they're going to be willing to take hard action.
What is it about workers' comp that's so expensive in Illinois?
There are a lot of things that are big about it. The biggest thing, though, is the sheer number of cases that get classified as workers' compensation as opposed to a traditional health care. Right now, we've got a system whereby if the workplace contributes even 1% to an injury, it's automatically a whole workers' compensation case. In other states, the workplace has to contribute as much as half to the injury, that creates a huge number of cases, and therefore they all get compensated, and it makes it a huge reason that they're so expensive.
What's on your agenda?
We also need
realistically speaking, what's on the agenda?
Realistically on the agenda is also a much more pro-investment tax code. There's going to be this big discussion about taxes. It's not happening right now, but at the end of the budget process, there's going to be discussion about taxes. We're not for higher taxes, but they're certainly going to be on the table. So that's an opportunity for us to go in and make the case that if you're going to have a discussion about rates, have a discussion about something that will help the business community as well. For jobs. So we think that taxes are definitely going to be on the table. There's huge opportunity to make the tax code better for businesses.
So we've talked about workers' comp, taxes, minimum wage.
Minimum wage is in the mix, and from our standpoint, we think, unfortunately, Illinois has already got the highest minimum wage in the Midwest. It is a disincents businesses that can't move, like retail, who's site-specific, the tourism-related entities, so in social service entities for that matter as well. On the one hand, we go ahead and starve social service providers in terms of funding level, yet we mandate they pay their people more in wages. So social services, it's a huge issue as well there. So unfortunately, though, the governor made a choice to run on a minimum wage increase, one that's certainly less draconian than what a lot of people in the legislature would like. But we're going to be under the gun on minimum wage. We'll just have to see what happens.
It's going to be a lot of horse trading. I mean, what does the chamber want for sure, and what are you willing to give up in terms of these compromises?
Well, I don't think anything is going to get negotiated in isolation. We think transportation funding is very, very important, especially for a state like Illinois where logistics and transportation is so vital to the economy. We would love to have that conversation, but it's tied in with a discussion on revenues, the budget, business reforms, and minimum wage. So we think all five of those are going to be pretty much linked. In terms of what we want, we've got that agenda out there, and we can talk some more about it. What we're willing to give up, well, my board is going to tell me. But we can be flexible. We know that the give and take, both sides have to give up something. We'll have to look at a whole package in its totality to decide whether it's a net benefit for the economy or it's not.
You had a board meeting today.
We did.
Did you get a sense of what you can do, what you can lobby for, what you can be opposed to?
Well, part of the problem is that we just haven't gotten very far on the next budget discussion yet, where all of those issues are come into play. The problem is we've got a $1.6 billion deficit that I referenced earlier in the current fiscal year. And there's just squabbling and no movement thus far in terms of fixing that problem. And that has taken all the oxygen out of the air in Springfield right now. So we can't even get to the point where we're talking about those items until we fix this year's current budget.
You mentioned transportation. If I recall correctly, Illinois has the second most rail lines, the third most highway or interstate highway lines in the nation. About 5 or 6 years ago, Governor Quinn put together a capital bill, about $31 billion. That's pretty much run out.
It has. Some of those projects are still going on, but what it did is set up a bunch of revenue streams in order to fund bonding or borrowing to pay for big projects. So all of that money is now accounted for in projects, and consequently the program falls off the table really this year. You couple that with the fact that the federal trust fund for highways is also about bankrupt. I think it's scheduled to go bankrupt in May without another fix. And transportation funding could really take a nosedive this year if we don't do something. So it's a huge priority for the chamber and a lot of people to get together and pass a transportation investment package in Springfield this year.
From the chamber's perspective, might that include an increase in the motor fuel tax, both on the national and or the state level?
The chamber and a coalition of entities called the Transportation for Illinois Coalition has coalesced around a plan that could actually decrease the cost of motor fuel to consumers. From the chamber's standpoint, we think that's important because Illinois retailers really are at a disadvantage, and as our consumers, with higher gas prices than our neighboring states. But the reality is it's not just the gas tax, which is 19 cents per gallon, flat tax. The real problem is that Illinois is one of only 9 states that put the sales tax on top of the gas tax tax. So as gas gets more expensive, that sales tax acts as almost a price accelerator. So that's what we want to do. We want to get rid of the sales tax on motor fuels. It's a terrible tax policy and it costs consumers. And then once you do that, then you've got some headroom to go ahead and increase the gas tax, but still have it be a net decrease for consumers. So we're excited about a plan that could actually make us more competitive with other states and save consumers a little bit of money on gas while still putting substantial resources in the trust fund.
So if I read that correctly, that would bring more money into the transportation fund, but it would decrease income to the state of Illinois.
It would. It is, in essence, a transfer of money that's now going to GRF and putting it into the road fund. But we think that's warranted for a couple reasons. First of all, taxes on motor fuels in vast majority of states, and I think consumers would believe all those taxes go in the road fund. It doesn't happen that way, and we think that that should be changed. The second is that second item, which is it's a tax on top of a tax, and if you include the federal tax, it's a tax on a tax on a tax. So we think that's just a terrible policy that's got to be ended. There's going to be a lot of discussion about taxes and a broad package. We think now's the time to go ahead and make that change.
It may not be a huge chunk of money, but you started the program talking about $1.6 billion deficit. Mm-hmm. You take a little bit away here and a little bit away here. How are you going to make that up? I know you're not the politician, but
well, I think that on table, unfortunately, is a substantial number of what are called fund sweeps. We all pay a number of fees that are for dedicated funds. If you are a beautician, you pay certain licensing fees that goes into a dedicated fund to administer licensing of beauticians. But a lot of those times, those dedicated funds will accumulate a balance, and the legislature a lot of times comes along and wants to slide that money into GRF to pay the light bill. So we think it's bad policy. But the harsh reality is we left good policy behind a long time ago, and this may be the best choice of bad choices out there.
Mentioning transportation taxes, let's talk about waterways in Illinois. For years now, those who use the rivers to transport goods have paid an additional fee for diesel fuel. And then, of course, the Army Corps and the state of Illinois. But yet, we have locks and dams that are in need of repair. They're not being expanded as hoped to 1,200 feet from the current 600. Does the chamber have a position on fixing that?
We certainly do, and actually we're happy to report that there has actually been good movement on it. The importance of the issue is demonstrated by the fact that those same barge owners that are paying a tax are agreed to pay a higher tax so that there's more money to put into modernizing and upgrading those locks and dams. So anytime an industry comes forward and says, we volunteer to pay more, as long as government will actually spend the money the way they want it should, that's a real indication of the magnitude of the problem. So I think that's a success story in the infrastructure and transportation world that's out there. Congress passed it, it's signed into law, and we hope that that money gets put to good use sooner rather than later.
So we can do that, but in regard to roadway taxes, we don't want to do something like that?
Well, the problem is you've got one uniform tax that everybody pays in different states. The motor fuel tax does vary by state to state. And, again, when you put that sales tax on top, a retailer on the western side or eastern side of the state, you almost get to the point where you've got gas station deserts in certain communities because everybody goes across to pay 10, 12, 15 cents less for gas across the border.
Let's talk about minimum wage. It's what is it right now? Eight and a quarter. 8 1/4.
Highest in the Midwest.
What is it in the surrounding states?
It does vary, and there's been a little bit of movement, but generally we're at least 50 cents higher than other states, but other states were as much as $1 higher.
I know we started to talk about this earlier, but is there a might the chamber, maybe the national chamber, support a national minimum wage?
The problem is that business owners know that a minimum wage increase sounds good, but in reality, it's a job killer. And it takes opportunities most often away from those people with the lowest skill sets that need that first rung on the employment ladder. So it's really it sounds good, but it's really an insidious issue if you really care about the economy and job creation. So it's very hard for the U.S. Chamber to say, hey, it's okay to go out and kill small business jobs by increasing the minimum wage. But political reality is it'll happen eventually. We know that. What we would be in favor of at the national level is saying, you know what, if other states want to go ahead and catch up to our 825, and then we go ahead and match, we could have that discussion. But right now, our small businesses are at $1 an hour at least, disadvantaged to other states. And again, another reason we're lagging job creation compared to other Midwestern states.
Immigration has been a big topic of concern across the country. I know that the Chamber has come out with a statement regarding you'd like to see those highly skilled immigrants be available for jobs, and yet there seems to be a difficulty in finding them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of talk about how great talents, great skills from overseas and other countries come to the United States to get educated. And then because of our immigration system, they're forced to go back to their home countries to go ahead and start businesses or be great engineers for their companies. We think that that doesn't make much sense at all. And that's one of the things of a comprehensive immigration reform package we would very much like to see addressed.
Caterpillar has announced that they're going to stay in Peoria. I was at the announcement and everybody was all excited. From a statewide perspective, from the state chamber's perspective, what did that say to the state of Illinois? What did that say to other businesses in terms of the business climate in Illinois?
It was really a statement about Illinois' future. That Caterpillar looked at the state of affairs as tough as they have been, and I do think that Governor Rauner's election certainly made that decision easier. I know that they're very committed to this community, so maybe it wasn't a tough decision, but certainly having Governor Rauner there and knowing that there's going to be a new path for our state, I'm sure helped make that decision even easier. I do think that it sends a signal, though, that that the business community wants change. They're willing to stick around. They're loyal to our state, but they just demand better out of our state government and our economic policies. So it's a tremendous win. Obviously, tremendously important to the state, important to the Illinois Chamber of Commerce, important to the Peoria community. But I think a real vote of confidence for Illinois' future, and that's just great.
They did that without any incentives, other than Enterprise Zone and TIF, which they happen to be in a TIF district. But they did that without incentive. Surprise you? Or without asking for incentive, let me put it that way.
It didn't surprise me. Illinois, we work very closely with Caterpillar, great member of ours. So I know their culture and I know their leadership, and it doesn't surprise me that they went the route they did and didn't ask the state for additional assistance. That's just part of their culture. They say if it's right, it's right. And they didn't go to the state for any additional help. But that's not to cast aspersions on any business who decided that they did have to. The harsh reality is that other states compete for our business and investment for their states. Let's face it, if Governor Rauner were to pluck Eli Lilly out of Indiana with a bunch of incentives and get him to move to Chicago, people in Illinois would be applauding that. While the people of Indiana would be, spitting nails. So the reality is that the governors from other states call our businesses all the time and offer incentives. Illinois has to be prepared to answer with some incentives of our own. But the important thing is the price of those incentives goes down the more you lower the general cost of business. So I think that these reforms that the governor is touting are very important. If you don't want the government handing out a bunch of incentives, then you have to be for reforms to the business climate that lower the cost so you don't have to do as much on the incentive side.
We've been talking about Caterpillar. How about the small business? What role does Illinois Chamber play with small businesses?
Well, small businesses are the majority of our members. Important part of our chamber federation are local chambers of commerce. You got a great chamber of commerce here in the Peoria area, in the vicinity around. Great partners of ours. So for all of us, small businesses are the backbone of our membership. But we are very well aware, though, that there's a perception in small businesses or the public that it's always the big guys that get attention. And that's why we think it's very important in this debate about taxes and business reforms that's going to happen, that we lead with some real concrete proposals that are going to help small businesses. They create most of the jobs in Illinois, just like they do nationwide. So we really need to focus on that. That's why we're going to propose and push very hard for the state to adopt a new program that allows small businesses to expense or write off all of their capital investment in the very first year they make the purchase. Right now, it kind of drips and drabs over several years, and they get to write off that investment over a number of years. If you can go write that off in the first year, it's a huge win for you and a huge incentive to invest in your business, which means investing in jobs as well.
Is that unique to Illinois in the Midwest?
It would be very unique in Illinois. It was part of previous federal stimulus packages, and it was very successful. We think Illinois could make a bold statement, not only on behalf of small business, but the economy, and do something very different and say, we're putting small businesses first. We're going to allow this important tax treatment, and I think it'll be incredibly well received and really give a shot of confidence to small businesses that Illinois is coming back.
Governor Rauner has proposed right to work in selective, I guess, more like home rule. If you would like right to work in your community, you can have it. We know that Indiana recently passed it, Wisconsin, Michigan has right to work, Iowa has right to work, so it's around Illinois. What's the Chamber's take on right to work by area?
By area, we're still researching whether that can happen without state law or not. I think that there is a plan to endorse a state law, but in Kentucky, some counties went ahead and did it without a state law. That's under litigation. I think that their proposal will be to pass a state law to give counties the authority. And I tell you what, that's very hard to argue against. We are for that. We think that communities should be able to decide, and we think workers should be able to make a decision in the workplace. So we're for that. But we're also for things like workers' compensation reform that we talked about. That will improve the economy along with right to work zones. So will civil justice reform help the economy just like those other items. Unemployment insurance is another burden that's unnecessarily high. That would make us more competitive. So really we're kind of taking an all of the above approach and just to turn the state around.
Civil justice being?
Civil justice is essentially restoring fairness to the courts. Illinois is notorious for certain jurisdictions that are just very, very plaintiff friendly to the point where businesses feel like I don't get a fair shot, and they're very expensive. Madison County has a very small point of the American population, yet they account for the vast majority, the largest single jurisdiction for asbestos cases. So we're really out of whack, and we've got to do something to get our courts back so they're more even-handed.
We heard from the Obama administration that we were going to open up Cuba, apparently gradually. Has the Illinois Chamber had any, and knowing that Governor Ryan went to Cuba in '99, I believe it was, is there any effort on the Illinois Chamber's behalf to open up doors in Cuba?
I think that we're really looking at the Caribbean as a whole. I think there are exciting opportunities that different companies are looking at as a place for either, Puerto Rico, for instance, is a haven for pharmaceutical manufacturing. So there are real opportunities in the entire Caribbean, including Cuba. We know that Cuba will get most of the attention because there has been a big change. I will tell you that there's a real debate, though, within the business community. Everybody sees the economic potential, but then everybody also sees a very repressive regime that is not democratic capitalism. So I think that over time that two things are going to happen. First of all, a lot of people who I think maybe correctly are concerned about the governor, not the governor, but the president overreaching his authority and not being as consultative and just single-handedly making the changes to Cuba policy. That's a legitimate concern in my opinion. It would have been much better to build consensus on how we go ahead and do that. So there's a little bit of extra dissonance on the Cuba issue within the business community, but I think over time everybody's going to look and see that the opportunities in Cuba are worth a change in policy and that we need to get there at some point.
Not that the chamber has a whole lot to say about this, but is there structure change needed in Springfield, not in terms of the House or the Senate, but in terms of its economic development wing? Because there used to be DECA, now there's DCEO, Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. And from my perspective, it seems like we haven't heard much from DCEO. In brief.
I would say yes. I think there's a consensus in the business community that you should shutter the doors, knock down the buildings, and then build it back up from the ground floor. That may or may not happen over the short term, but economic development has suffered under benign neglect and maybe even active neglect from the last two governors, and it really shows economic development needs to be turned around.
And with that, we have expired the half hour of time. Todd Maisch, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to the leadership of the the Illinois Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And next week, we'll be talking about economy once again. Jennifer Daly of the Greater Peoria EDC and Kyle Ham of the Bloomington Normal Economic Development Council will join us here on At Issue for further economic discussion. Join us then.